All right, welcome in everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's exciting session hosted by WGU's Career and Professional Development team. My name is Hong Win, and I'm part of the team here supporting our students and alumni in their careers. I'm so thrilled to introduce our guest today, Ranee Bray, who is a WGU alum and Senior Cybersecurity Director at Cloudflare. She brings a deep experience in leading highly regulated industries, and she's also very passionate about mentoring the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. We're so grateful to have her join us today, where she'll share her perspectives on cybersecurity careers and where they're headed. So, with that, Renee, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ron, and thanks for inviting me. Yeah, the future of cyber careers. I'm going to talk about the future both in the near term and as well as hopefully you'll take away some tips on it's an ever evolving industry. So some future tips of how to keep yourself future proofed, if you will. So let's start off with giving you a little bit more about my background. So I've worked in cybersecurity for a little over 10 years now. Prior to that, I was very much a change leader, project management, fell in love with cybersecurity, the first exposure I had. Started off doing cybersecurity projects in the healthcare industry, doing risk assessments and then remediation from what those risk assessments found. Very, very much fell in love. And I think the big reason I fell in love with cybersecurity that we're going to talk more about today is that evolving career. It's never ending. The learning will be forever for you if you choose this career path. Had the pleasure of working for the CISO at Charles Schwab for a little over 6 years, helping him build a first-line cybersecurity organization. Moved on to Silicon Valley Bank, where I headed global security transformation. Security is always about transformation, constant change. So that's one thing you'll need to think about in your career in cybersecurity as well. At Cloudflare, global security strategy, transformation, identity and access management, incident remediation, security awareness and training, which is very dear to my heart, security metrics, and running that office of the CISO. As Huang I think mentioned, I am a WGU alumni. I got my MBA in IT management from WGU. And started off in political science, so very much a career changer who fell into cybersecurity by accident and have stayed for over a decade and don't see myself doing anything different. I have a lot of alphabet soup next to my name, as we like to joke in the industry, CISP, CSOM, CRISC, and that PMP. A lot of people ask me why I chose the MBA from WGU instead of a master's in cybersecurity. I got my MBA from WGU. I finished it in early 2023. And it was very much an intentional decision. I've encouraged people to go for the master's in cybersecurity as well. But I do like to talk a little bit about why I decided to go the MBA route. And it was pretty much because I've been working in the day-to-day of cybersecurity in my daily career. And really, cybersecurity is very much a business challenge, very much a business problem to solve. And so I really wanted to understand more about the business and how the business ran. And the MBA from WGU gave me that with that emphasis on technology as well. So a little bit about myself. Happy to connect with everybody. I put my LinkedIn there. We're going to talk more about what a tight-knit community this is, so we can start that here. These are definitely just my own views. So everything that I'm going to present today is, got to have a legal disclaimer, my own personal experience. So my goal for you today is to walk away understanding just the plethora of roles in this profession and what drives the evolution of those roles in cybersecurity, and how can you navigate that, either if you're in cybersecurity today or looking to make a career shift. How do you navigate this very rewarding but challenging career? And to do that, I want to focus on 4 key areas. So let's talk about the cybersecurity profession at large. What does it really mean when we say we work in cybersecurity? What are the benefits of working in cybersecurity in the community? How can you stay connected? I want to talk about evolving threats and evolving skills and how that really will change the future of cyber careers and how you're able to connect those dots, both to be more successful in your current career or to think about where your career needs to, where the future of your own career is. Because we'll talk about where I think the future of cyber careers are heading and why. And then how do you just navigate success? How do you take care of yourself and both academically, professionally, and personally to have a successful career in this industry? So first, let's start with what does it mean to work in cybersecurity? A lot of times people will say, oh, you work in cybersecurity, and they automatically assume you're a pen tester, you're a hacker, you're working in that basement, in the dark. And the reality is that cybersecurity has, there's so many domains, so many roles. The latest number I could find was over 120 professional roles globally. Um, this is a community that, or this is a domain where it's like saying everything about cybersecurity is like saying everything about science, right? It's a very much um, you can go deep in very many domains. At some point, you're going to need to learn to connect the domains across one another. But to start off with, I would recommend you pick one that's of great interest to you and where you have a background that has complementary skills. If this is a career shift for you, if you're already in cybersecurity and looking how to take it to the next level, understanding more and more broadly about the profession is what I would recommend to help you to get there. But it's really important to understand that cybersecurity is not just one role. It's not one person. It definitely takes many roles depending on your organization and their risk and their threat environment to secure. But the good thing about this, all these roles is that it really is one of the strongest communities, I think, professionally that you're ever going to find. Truly a community of lifelong learners because you have to. We're going to talk about that. It's the threat environment's constantly changing, so you will have to change with it in this career. But it's truly a great community of people who are driven by curiosity and they're very much mission oriented, truly a commitment to defend. And because of that, even though cybersecurity people have this kind of social vision of like they keep to themselves, they really enjoy just many different avenues of connecting with other people in the industry. We have industry conferences, both corporate conferences as well as hacking type conferences. You can find your people in cybersecurity at very many conferences that are held globally on a regular basis. You're going to have to continuously educate yourself in this community. So, finding continuing education courses is also how you're going to connect with people. Social media is a fantastic way to connect and keep up on the threats. If you're not following 3 or 4 leaders, CISA, FBI, a couple of big thought leaders in security world, I highly recommend you do to stay connected to what's happening. It's a fast changing especially these days. You'll need to keep up with what's the latest, greatest. Where are we heading in the future? Obviously, the WGU alumni network is very large. I know a lot of cybersecurity professionals come from WGU. It's a fantastic program. A lot of people, if you're new to this industry, haven't heard of the information sharing, the ISACs that was founded in the late 90s by the US government. If you work in retail, they have an ISAC for you. This is an information sharing group where they share what they're seeing in their industry, across the industry so that you can proactively defend based off of the learning from others. So there's retail, finance, airline industry. If you're not sure, go look. There's probably an ISAC for you if you work in anything that might be considered critical infrastructure. Find local chapters of any of, there's tons of local cybersecurity communities to get involved with, professional associations, mentorship. Finding a good mentor in cybersecurity is going to be critical. But what you'll find is there's no end. In fact, you might have the opposite problem of figuring out how to best spend your time in one of these areas to stay connected to the community. But it's a very critical step in your career to stay connected to the community. So let's talk a little bit about that dynamic threat landscape. It really is changing fast. 2 years ago, when people talked about insider risk, it was kind of a yes, we should do it, but nobody really saw a lot of activity. In the last 9 months, insider risk has become a top concern for CISOs. So it's very much a dynamic threat landscape. Highly recommend, again, find someone to follow, because to keep ahead of where things are moving, changes fast. We wouldn't be in 2025 if we weren't talking about AI, right? And so you should make sure that you're understanding both how to use AI to defend your organization, as well as how to support your organization in defending. So both defensive and governance of AI. Insider risk. These are people who you've hired or given access to because they're a contractor or a professional services firm, um, you know, that are now a risk to your company. They might be disgruntled. They might have joined falsely. They might not be who they think they are. So how do you defend when you've given people access and trusted them, and you inherently have broken your trust model when that person is no longer trustworthy? It's a huge concern up at the board level even today. Ransomware has been around for the past couple of years, but we're seeing it become more sophisticated, and even extortion as a service. So it's a huge impact, not only to your ability to defend and keep the company operational, but the regulatory impact and how you run your cybersecurity organization to meet those regulatory demands is key. Fraud is not something that people typically think about in the cybersecurity world, but it is definitely something that the fraud department, if you depend on what company you work for and what their risk is with fraud, they will depend on you for that integrity of, are people really who they say they are, and the integrity of everything that gives those people trust. These are some of the four big areas, but supply chain compromise, it's this third party risk management. You're opening up your attack surface greatly when you expand out and trust other partners, other software companies to tie into your ecosystem. Authentication, are again people who they say they are. When they're logging into your environment, that's how they get the keys to the kingdom. And human risk. Human risk has become more and more, we always say people, process, and technology. The people and process is where we usually break down, and attackers know that. So anyone in cybersecurity who is ignoring the human risk and the people and process side, it's going to be a mess. That is a huge change in the threat landscape, and the sophistication of how attackers are able to go after us on the human risk side is becoming more and more obvious in the last year. So these are just some of the concerns for industry leaders. There's many more, just like there's many roles, right? There's many areas of threat, but these are the ones that I see leaders the most focused on these days. And how can you take that? So if you're already in a cybersecurity role, or again, thinking about it from a job interview perspective, you need to take that threat landscape is very broad, but it's very much you're going to need to be able to overlay that with your businesses, your organization's business model. So understanding their business goals will support your prioritization of your learning and where you're going in your career. So it's very important that you understand the corporate view. Where is the business going directionally? And then understand how will that impact the actual operations within the business. What will the new regulatory requirements be if we open up a new center internationally, or we weren't very vocal on social media as a company before? No one knew who we are, and now we're very loud, and people now know who we are, and maybe it's putting a target on the company's back. So understanding where the company is marketing to, opening up new facilities, types of hiring that we're doing, type of new technology that your IT department is going to be implementing to support the business. What are your new customers? What does your new customer model look like? Do you have small customers and your security models and meets their expectations? Or are you working towards large enterprise customers that have very different customer compliance expectations? And again, the IT growth, what's the IT roadmap? How's that going to expand your attack surface and increase the risk, increase the threats? All of this understanding of the environment is going to be how you will understand how you're going to be able to enable the business to succeed and what skills you need that are the most relevant. I like to say this because this is something that sometimes we become very siloed in our thinking of, like, well, I just want to do this one thing. Is that one thing still the future of your organization's priorities? You want to be ahead of it? Where are we going as a company, and where can I add the most value? Um, and a lot of times people will say to me when I mentor people, our business doesn't do a great job at sharing that information. Who's going to tell me where I can get this information from? And back to that lifelong learner, you're going to have to learn how to advocate for yourself in this career. Some companies do a fantastic job at sharing big picture business goals, strategy, where we're going, crystal clear, connect the dots for you as a strategic leader. Some areas we might fall short. I always say people should be the CEO of their own career. And this is where you should fill the gaps for yourself. If you're not getting what you need, if you don't understand where the business is going because your boss isn't telling it to you, go read the website, go keep up on the marketing materials, attend if your company's public, attend the quarterly earnings calls, understand where the CEO is taking the company. There are many ways you can find this information, even if it's not being spoon fed to you. And I'd highly recommend you do that, even if it is, so that you can make sure you've heard it firsthand and really understand the impact, again, on your career in the future. So what are the key areas that we know are in high demand? Pretty much across the board. Again, 2025, the last couple of years, we can't have any cybersecurity conversation without talking about AI. And there's multiple roles in AI. So, there's defending with AI. So how do you run a security organization and leverage AI to make sure you can scale and keep up? How do you govern the AI that the business is using to make sure that it's definitely expanding your threat surface, your attack surface. So what are the new threats? What are the new attack surface areas? How are we going to defend data integrity in this world? How do we defend an AI system? That's going to require that you understand both the technology as well as the controls that can be put into place and the governance that can be put in place to secure that business strategy if this is in their plans. Even if the business says we're not building AI, who are the third party vendors? Who are your trusted partners that you're using, that you have contracts with? How are they using AI? Have you looked at their contracts? So no matter where you're at what business you're working with, they probably have some area of AI governance and AI defense that they need your background, your knowledge to help them secure the business. Zero trust has been a big buzzword for the last few years. Zero trust has been around for quite some time, but believe it or not, there's still a lot of companies that don't understand what this means and don't yet have it implemented because it's not a tool, it's not a technology, it's an architectural decision. And so it's really that understanding that the perimeter is kind of obsolete. And very few of us go to an office, sit in an office, and only log in from the office anymore. We're all working from our mobile phones, mobile devices, laptops, coffee shops, on airplanes. So this is really the compliance gold standard that companies or that regulators are expecting companies to meet, which is why I say it's still in high demand. Not all companies have met that high bar. And even if they have, it's probably not 100%. So absolutely anything you can bring to the table from a zero trust architectural or even just zero trust mindset, because it's not just security architecture, it's identity, it's architecture, it's how all of your technology works to defend or to protect that your attack surface today. Very different mindset. New strategies on how you're going to contain and mitigate any threats that actually get into your front door. So this isn't going anywhere. And same thing with cloud security, not going anywhere. It's been around. There was a time back in 2016, 2017 when we could not find cloud security professionals. It has definitely leveled out. A lot of people have done the training and just kind of like AI, come up to speed and bring more cloud security professionals into the workforce, but it's still a high demand area. We have companies with multi-cloud ecosystems, and how do they navigate that complexity and security? I remember at one point, we actually believed that moving to the cloud was going to do all the security for us, and it hasn't panned out. So We definitely need more people who understand cloud architecture and what kind of security controls can be put into place to defend that complex infrastructure. And resiliency gaps in cloud, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, a lot of big cloud providers weren't quite as resilient as we thought. So how do we make sure one of the triads of cybersecurity is that availability. So how we thought about resiliency and how the company can be resilient even when their third parties are not. And then identity. Identity is the new zero trust buzzword. I've focused on identity since very early in my career, and it's a game changer, and it's a high area of demand because it really is the new perimeter. Again, people are logging in from their mobile device, laptops, working from anywhere. Who we give access to is key to defending. And not only humans. So the new identity that's going to be in high demand is, how are we securing bots? How are we, with all this agentic AI we're hearing about in the marketplace, how are you securing the identity of agents? This is a whole new area to investigate and to figure out how we're going to secure and enable the business to take those risks with using AI. Always will be in high demand is security leadership, security strategy, and enterprise culture. Back to the human risk. It's the whole company needs to understand cybersecurity, not just the people. Cybersecurity is not something that's just done in a corner. So I think those will always remain in high demand. So how do you navigate your career with all this change and all these new threats coming in, and maybe you again have not started in a direct path of what made you feel like would be a normal progression to a cybersecurity career? I will tell you, this is one of the most diverse professions I've ever seen in my personal network, my career network, my professional network. Everybody in cybersecurity comes from a very unique background. So it's a plus. We'll talk about that. It's your benefit. Understanding core concepts. And, again, like maybe you just want to be a red team, you just want to pen test, you just want to be an ethical hacker. That's great. But while you need to understand those core concepts, understand the core concepts of cybersecurity at large, like expand out a little bit more. Make sure you do understand the broad vision so that you're not working in a silo. You'll be able to add a lot more value. And you cannot learn all of these things at once. I mean, it really is sometimes intimidating and overwhelming. You'll see so many different types of attacks and types of threats and emerging technologies. It can be overwhelming. Choose something that you love, choose focus, do well at it, and then move on to the next. It'll never, your learning will never end. So take it and focus in and find compensatory peers to balance that off of your skills with their skills. That will be where the money is. Make sure you network, make sure you contribute. You can contribute in many ways. Virtual communities, open source contributions, bug bounty programs. Contribute. It's a great community. You're going to learn from others. You'll be able to showcase what you can do. And really, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but showcase those transferable skills. If you're coming from a different background or you're in this background and you have those skills, make sure you're highlighting them. There's many skills beyond just cybersecurity needed to be successful in a cybersecurity career, but you might have to connect those dots for the person on the other side who's deciding if your promotion will get approved or if you get to move to a new role or whether you're looking for a new job. So connect the dots. Make sure you can showcase those transferable skills. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then look for those fast growth opportunities, even once you're in the door. And, a lot of times people who have to make decisions in their career to move to a new career path, don't be afraid to start over. This is a fast growth industry. So it might be hard to get your foot in the door. I've heard that a lot recently from cybersecurity folks. It's really hard to get that entry-level job in today's world. Don't be afraid to take a few steps back because the growth is there. Once you get those opportunities and show what you can do, the growth is 100% there and it's not going away. So let's go dive in deeper to those skills beyond cyber. And I built this list off of thinking about who are the people that I have worked with over the last decade who are the most successful in their career. Either successful because they climbed to the point that they would like to on the ladder in the cybersecurity career world, or they've just added the most value to the company and really were the people who um, could get us to the finish line. So people with really strong communications backgrounds do really well in this industry, primarily because it's not a skill that is inherent in a lot of people who choose this industry. So if you have a strength in your communication skills, or if this is an area you feel you need to work on, I would highly recommend as a number one. The more you're able to articulate what you're doing in your career, who you are, what the challenges are, the why behind what you're doing from a cyber perspective at many different levels in the company, the more successful you'll be. I always like to say that one of my strengths is I can go from talking to a board, to an executive leader, to the engineer, to the analyst, all in the same day on the same topic. And you can meet people where they're at. And so being able to talk the language um, and speak to where someone else is at and connect the dots, the more successful you'll be. Business acumen is key. And again, typically a gap in this field. You need to understand how what you're doing relates directly to the business. If you've been in cyber for a while, you've heard we need to find the most critical assets to the company. Resiliency, we can't be resilient in 100%. So how do we understand what the main priorities are for the company? You need to understand what the business is and how they work in order to connect those dots and make those decisions. You're going to be asked in your career a lot in cyber to prioritize because you cannot do it all. Just like you can't learn it all, and you won't be able to defend it all either. You will constantly be making prioritization decisions in this industry. So when you think about your career, you need to think about, am I making prioritization decisions based off of the business? So the more you understand the business and can articulate that, the better. You absolutely will have to execute in this role, in this industry. My background is execution, and it's probably why I've done so well in cybersecurity. We always joke that if somebody had told us that working in cybersecurity was really working in project management, maybe we would have chose a different career. For me, it was the opposite. I love project management, so working in cybersecurity was the connected tissue for me there on those complementary skills. But you will 100% be delivering change constantly in your career in cybersecurity because of that dynamic threat landscape. Your tools that you had yesterday are not going to be relevant in a few years. You're hopefully thinking ahead, thinking about where the business is changing, thinking about where the threat landscape is changing, and you will be executing change in addition to running with your current operations. So the more you can understand execution, and the more successful you'll be. Or if you have these things in your background, right? Let's not lose that sight of that. If you have these things in your background, I'd really focus on them when you're connecting the dots on how you'd add value to your new profession. If you're able to measure progress and learn how to quantify risk either qualitatively or qualitatively, this is a huge skill and something that will connect, especially if you can measure progress and do risk quantification that's aligned exactly to that business. So if you have a very big statistics background, learn OKRs, KPIs, KRIs, this is going to be a huge benefit that you're going to bring to the team. You're going to be really good at leading without authority in cyber. Even if you feel like you have a lot of authority, you don't have authority over everybody in the company when you work in cybersecurity. So leading without authority is a skill set that is going to show up every day on your team and in your career here. Influencing others, back to the communications and the business acumen, but being comfortable being a leader, even if it's not in your title. You will 100% be leading someone in IT, someone in the business, other cybersecurity professionals on your team. You will constantly have to lead and influence in order to get your job done. And problem solving. I mean, this truly is a dynamic landscape, many, many pieces to puzzles in the middle of incidents. The more creative thinking and problem solving skills you bring to the table, the better, more value you'll add. So those are just kind of the top 6 areas. So there's a lot more, but think deeply about what you bring to the table. I guarantee you that there's some connected dot there that will help you in your career in cyber. And you're going to have to be really comfortable with change. So sustained and dynamic change should become integral to your mindset. If you are choosing cybersecurity as a profession and you are not comfortable with change, it's going to be a challenge for you. You can learn how to defend against a specific type of attack. Actually, let's just focus on identity. You could have been an identity SME 10 years ago and felt like you really understood how to manage identity. But if you are not keeping up on the new dynamic industry of what identity means to protect in today's world, with that zero trust context, with the bot, with the non-human identities, with expanded privileged access, new regulatory expectations, you're going to fall behind. So commitment to this industry, the future of cyber careers, you're going to have to be comfortable with change, with not knowing it all, and constantly learning. And resiliency. We always talk about resiliency from a cyber perspective, right? How do we make sure the business is supported, all the technology is available? Resiliency. But this is a profession with a really high level of burnout, very high risk of burnout. You're on constantly, depending on what role you take in cybersecurity, and that's one of the things you should consider when you consider what role is right for you, what security domain is right for you. If you want to be an incident responder, you're going to have to be comfortable with being called at all hours of the day, all weekend long, potentially, right? But if that's not right for you, there's security awareness and culture, which is more communications and proactive. So there's definitely a role for you depending on what kind of lifestyle you need. But regardless of where you're at, you are always going to be at risk for burnout because the work is never done. You have to get really good at drawing boundaries, knowing the difference between when something really is an emergency and when it simply needs to pause because you need to breathe. So the work is never done. You have to be comfortable with that, and you're going to have to figure out how to draw boundaries professionally so that you can recover and reset and make sure you're in it for the long run. Especially if you do choose an area in cyber where you are constantly on call or go through incidents where you're working 16, 18 hours a day for a few days straight. Again, that's not every career in cyber, but there's quite a few that are in that is the real world. You're going to have to make sure you take time to recover. And the flight or fight mode in this industry is real. So I have been part of many incidents, helping other companies outside of the companies I've worked for. And some people on their team quit in the middle of an incident. The human element, so if you're looking at a leadership role in cybersecurity, the human element of this industry is truly one that you need to focus on, because it's not only just teaching your the whole company the human element of human risk, but how you lead, how you run your organization, how you think about the dynamics of the roles, how you have coverage, and make sure that if you're in the middle of a high impact security incident, has that person slept and eaten in the last 24 hours? Because people start making mistakes when they are not taking care of themselves. So you may not always have that leadership strength behind you. Take it for yourself. It's okay to say, I need to stop, I need to rest, I need to breathe. You're going to be stronger for it. This is definitely a high cognitive, demanding role, any of these roles. So you're going to have to make sure that you are functioning at your best and that you're advocating for yourself. It's interesting if you're interested in this specific part of cybersecurity. There's some great resources out there where psychologists are starting to get involved and understand how the industry in and of itself, where we are constantly in defense mode, defending, and we feel like we're under attack. They're starting to realize that even though it's not a real attack on us, it's a technical attack on the environment. The human response is kind of the same as if we were physically being attacked. So just make sure you take care of your mental health, and pause and breathe, and know that you're going to do your best work when you are also at your best physically and mentally. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak today. I think we have quite a bit of time to answer your questions. I hope that was helpful and gives you a little bit of insight. I think the thing I would leave with before we turn over to questions is the future of cyber careers is not one thing, right? This industry is multiple things, and the more you can keep up on the threat environment, and if you work for a company that you love and you want to stay there and that's your goal, understanding their business model, you will never be bored in this career. Though you'll always have a new book to read, a new webinar to watch, and some new technology to learn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Renee, for all of that great insight. A lot of good tips were shared, and I really appreciated also the human aspect that you brought to today's topic as well. So we'll go ahead and open it up for any questions. You can feel free to drop those in the chat, or if you like to come off mute, you can go ahead and use that raise hand function, and we'll pass the mic over to you. So it looks like we have one here in the chat from Addison. This was so informative. Thank you. Since the cybersecurity space is constantly changing, how do you stay up to date with learning new skills, risk tools, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So partly that's why I recommend you find some good people to follow on social media, so you can kind of understand where the industry is going. So find some really good thought leaders that are aligned with your specific goals in your career, and follow them. Follow CISA, follow your ISACs, but follow some thought leaders. There's some really good thought leaders out there, happy to make recommendations based on what your specific goals are if you want to reach out to me directly. But I think staying up to date by, LinkedIn is amazing these days at the amount of information you can get. There's some really good thought leaders who push out weekly kind of digests for free through LinkedIn on what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the threat landscape. You definitely want to make sure you're aware of what the big incidents globally are, and that's a good way to keep up on that. You will get overwhelmed with some of the vast amounts of information that are out there. So pick a handful of really trusted that, again, align with your interests, and follow them. And then as far as like learning and staying up to date, I have the alphabet soup. So I have a lot of continuing education to keep my certifications intact. Those certifications are of great value, not just as a one-time thing. Huang and I were just talking before this about that's what the WGU degrees are so valuable in, is that you get that real-world learning from those certifications. To maintain those certifications, you're going to have to do continuing education, and I highly recommend it. That is the one way that you're going to get high quality education that's relevant, as well as to just have that structured learning. There's tons of unstructured learning though too. So like back to that, like find a local community, going to B-sides events, going to local events, you find your people, stay connected. There's so many free trainings these days as well. I think the problem for you will be to figure out who not to follow because you're going to get overwhelmed and just really zoning in, if you will, on how to stay focused. Because I will say it can become easily oh my god, overwhelming. So
Awesome. Thank you, Renee. Addison had a part 2 here. It's difficult to get experience in cyber in order to land a job. Do you have any advice on ways to get experience in this area?
yeah, I when I started my cybersecurity career, it was really easy for people to enter the cybersecurity world. It was like we would say, "Oh, go to a boot camp, get a couple credentials, and we would create pathways where we were constantly, the talent shortage is definitely much harder today. It's a great question. I would say that it's harder, but it's not impossible. This is where I encourage people to figure out how you can take your skills from the past and translate them. And don't expect the hiring manager or the recruiter to connect the dots for you. So you're going to have to really emphasize those skills and the credentials and knowledge that you've gained. I wouldn't be afraid to even, do volunteer work. I mean, it sounds, but do volunteer work. Join a bug bounty program if you're technical. Like, find the areas. There are ways you can show progress and projects these days through GitHub that weren't there before. So there's other avenues to showcase, even if those easy, career paths are not there anymore. I do think it will change again, though. I think part of that is just because of the current economy and the job market that we're in, that leaders can be really picky. But I wouldn't give up. I would really make sure that your resume screams on the compensatory skills that you bring to the table, and find some kind of projects you can work on. Again, you can showcase, if you're technical, you can showcase bug bounty programs, volunteer, get involved, meet people and let them know who you are and what you're capable of, so that they can connect the dots for you. But I also would not, I would not be afraid, again, to go back a few levels. So if you're a people leader today but not in cybersecurity, but you want to get in cybersecurity, don't be afraid to take an entry-level spot. It is a fast-growing industry, and that is not going to change. So the career ladder is much shorter, if you will, in cyber. So you might go back a few notches from a title perspective. Jump in. If this is an area you're passionate about, you will climb.
Thank you, Addison, for that question there. Next one here from Kimberly. Would it be okay to start a cyber career in tech support?
Yeah, absolutely. Most people in cyber did start in some kind of technology. I mean, in tech support, you're very much aware of, especially if you're working with users. I mean, you've been the front end of the front line, if you will, of defending against who's got access to what. What information are we sharing out? Tech support has truly been frontline. So I think, again, connecting, thinking about what you've done in your career that shows that where you've applied security. I've had people apply for jobs on my team, and when I ask them what their security background is, they'll say they'll do a really great job at connecting. Like, well, I worked on this technical project. While it wasn't a security project, these are all the security aspects I had to be aware of in order to successfully deliver that project. So focus in on what it was about your job that you believe was securing the environment. I'll say it again, like, security is not just a team in the corner. Cybersecurity is not the team in the corner. So if you've worked in tech or worked in business, somewhere in your job, you've done something to make sure that you understand how to protect, because you really are the people on the front line defending the company.
Awesome. Thanks, Kimberly, for that question. Next one here from RJ. What advice would you give to individuals who are newer in the cybersecurity and looking to grow and strengthen their professional network?
Yeah, I think that if there's if you're part of if you have a credential, take advantage of that community. So, like, if you're part of if you have any of the ISACA credentials, they have meetups locally every month to 2 months, depending on where your chapter is. Those are very active groups. I'd say probably the most active, as well as giving you opportunities to speak. Speak in small trusted groups to take your career to the next level of understanding, how to present, how to get more opportunities. Same thing with, like, things like B-sides. I mean, I think that I've known a lot of people in my career who've gone to some of these events on their own. They didn't show up, they didn't know anybody, they didn't show up with a team, they showed up on their own. And I think you'll find the sense of community so strong here that you'll find your people. And a lot of them are happy with just connecting virtually as well as in person. So no matter where you are, I think you'll be able to find your people online.
Awesome. Thank you, RJ, for that. I'll just give another minute here for any questions. And if you do think of one later on, you're always welcome to email us. I'll drop in the chat here Renee's LinkedIn page along with that quick survey. You are more than welcome to follow her. There we go. And I did have a question, Renee. You mentioned that mentorship is also important. Did you have any advice or ways that you were able to find a mentor? Oh, we actually have one here. Any advice on finding a mentor for technical
Yeah.
side of things, pen testing, Linux, or entry to mid-level? The mentors I have already director level.
Yeah. Um, if your company has a mentorship program, that's definitely going to be a good place. I guess, when I think of mentorship, I think of it as two different things. I think that everybody should have a mentor who's like two levels above them, so that they can learn growth, right? If you're looking for a mentor more from like a tech perspective to help you take your strategies to the next level, I would think of it more as like side projects you could work on with people versus like maybe what historically people think of as a mentor. Um, so because I think that's where your question was leaning, if I read it right, was more like, how could I get technical mentorship? Yeah. So I would find opportunities, and this is just me, I'm a nerd here, but I think that people who mentor learn just as much as the people who they're mentoring to, who they're mentees. So I think that especially in the technical world, you're going to find people who might be further up in the chain in their career, who want to work on things to stay relevant and stay in those weeds and understand technically where things are going as well. So I would say either internally, at your company that you are at today, or if you find people within your community, find projects where you can maybe even volunteer, like stretch assignments, and you can volunteer to work on those projects. So like, let's say today you work in software development and you don't have anything to do with the cybersecurity team, but you really are interested in moving to cyber. you know, Find people who work in the application security team. Ask them, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Can I just shadow? Can I come watch? Can I come learn? And if you start seeing areas where you can add value, this is always things that we have to do above and beyond our day job. But I think that those are ways that you can find people to help. And of course, you're going to learn from it as well. Um, I hope that was helpful. I know there's not one way, but I think that stretch goals and finding opportunities to help above and beyond your day job, people will never turn you down. There's a lot of work. Thanks
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you, Yolanda. Yeah, for that question. I don't see any other ones come through here. So if you do have a question later on, you are more than welcome to email us, or you can go ahead and connect with Renee on LinkedIn. But we'll go ahead and conclude today's session. Thank you, everyone, for joining and being a part of today's exciting session with Renee. Keep an eye out for that follow-up email with the session recording. We also have that quick survey. It's just 2 questions, and it helps us continue to bring meaningful events like these here. You can also visit those past recordings through our YouTube channel. And then we'll include Renee's LinkedIn in that follow-up email as well. Other than that, of course, we'd like to extend a big WGU thank you to you, Renee, for sharing your time, story, and mentorship with us today. Your dedication to developing the future of cybersecurity professionals and your great insights were incredibly valuable and inspiring. Thank you, everyone, again, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you at the next session.
Thanks, Song. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Take care. Yep. Bye.